The impact of a Trump presidency on the US and global economy depend very much on whether he's serious about all the policy proposals he made during his election campaign or whether he prioritises those that are growth supportive rather than growth destructive. So in particular, some of the key elements of his plan were a very large tax cut for both businesses and individuals especially on higher incomes, to label China a currency manipulator and exit or renegotiate existing trade agreements, and to significantly scale back on illegal immigration and the flow of new immigrants into the United States, and then also ramp up infrastructure spending. Now, some of these are clearly much more supportive of growth than others. In particular, if there was a substantial easing of fiscal policy beginning in the second half of 2017 and going into 2018, that would likely lift US growth. Similarly, with the public spending programs, although he's sort of now saying that he intends to finance that through private initiatives rather than public initiatives. So if that is all that a Trump administration does, then we could expect growth to be a little bit higher than the market is currently pricing in. If, on the other hand, he is very serious about wanting to increase protectionist policies, that has the potential to be very growth destructive, especially outside of the United States, where sort of higher tariffs and the potential for a trade war could be destructive, both for economies but also for risk assets, particularly because a lot of equities are sort of plugged into the industrial sector where their cost structures and growth would be highly constrained. Working on the assumption that Trump follows through in trying to loosen fiscal policy, and that's enabled by Congress, but doesn't follow through on increasing protectionism, then the Fed's going to face a bit of a dilemma potentially in late 2017 into 2018. Economic growth is already picking up before the election. Headline and underlying inflation are also in an upward trajectory, but they were signalling a very gradual path for tightening. If you get a substantial fiscal impulse that boosts the demand side of the economy by much more than the supply side of the economy, then inflation pressures are likely to build more quickly in those circumstances, especially because the economy is already nearing full employment. So that would most likely force the Fed into a more rapid tightening cycle than is currently anticipated by the market. If, on the other hand, you get that protectionist policy does come through and it's very market disruptive, then the Fed would have to tread much more warily in those circumstances. Like fiscal, it would tend to be inflationary, but it's stagflationary rather than demand pull inflation, so it would tend to lower growth even as it's sort of putting upward pressure on inflation. For the Fed, that probably means they can't lift rates, but they wouldn't be able to loosen policy into a downturn like that either.